Good morning, or rather good afternoon, everybody. Joe and Mike's virtual tours of Scotland, and here we happen to be in Edinburgh just now. And I'm on my own this time because my fellow team member is away off on holiday to the beautiful Hebrides, and I believe he's having a fantastic time. I've just been looking at the beaches and the wonderful skies up there. So if you ever get a chance to come to Scotland, the Hebrides, wonderful, amazing. Now, because it's myself today, I'll be doing a few different things with the camera, so I hope that's working okay, and the sound's working okay as well. But if you have got any feedback, we'd appreciate your comments, would be great. So I need, first of all, to thank everybody who's been watching, liking, and sharing and commenting, and also a special thank you to Cullen Mitchell from Blythewood, South Carolina in the USA, and to Adal Lear in Stalybridge in Cheshire, and also to Anne Cunningham, Musselburgh, East Lothian. Thank you. Your gratuities are very appreciated and helps us to develop the tours. Anyway, we're going to move on, and I'm going to swing the camera around because you won't really see as much of me this time. You hopefully will hear the commentary, but I want to give you a really good view of the area. Now, at the moment, you can perhaps see behind me, we've got the Balmoral Hotel with its famous clock, which is 3 minutes fast, so you can catch your train in time. Now I'm going to do the fancy thing with the camera and turn it round. Okay. Here we go, and I'd like to say a special hello at the moment to Margie Hutchison. It's good morning from you over in Canada, but over here it's good afternoon, and thank you again for watching. You were on one of my Outlander tours going back there. So you've got the famous clock on the end of Princess Street here. And this was a residential street, but it changed over the years to be very commercial, and as you can see today, what used to be people's houses, townhouses, transferred into multiple stores. But we still have got shades of the older architecture, as you can see in the Waverley, the old Waverley Hotel. Now we have got a homeless problem here, and not problem, but we've got a homeless issue here in Edinburgh, as most cities do have. And during lockdown, during the COVID pandemic, the Scottish Government funded accommodation for many people to stay and have shelter in such hotels as Old Waverley Hotel. So move further over here, you've got Jenner's department store. It's one of the oldest stores in existence. Kennington and Jenner was the original name. It was founded in the 1830s as a department store. Scotland was a very focused textile company in the manufacture of textiles, so clothing was quite a big part of the projects that were on sale in Jenner's. So the 1930s original building, but unfortunately it suffered through fire and was rebuilt in the later part of the 19th century. And Charles Jenner stipulated that it should have caryatids, which are sculptures like pillars in the form of human beings, and these were to be female. And today, if you get close to it, you can see the female statues holding up the house, as he liked to say. Now I'm just going to move over a little bit. I've got the Scott Monument behind here, but I'm not going to talk about that quite at the moment. We've got David Livingston with a pigeon on his head, which you can see at the moment. So I'm going to talk a little bit about David Livingston. He was born in Scotland in 1813 and famously became one of the leading lights, anti-slavery Christian missionary who went to Africa to explore, to find out where the sources of the Nile were. And he was born in Blantyre, south of Glasgow, into a very poor family, and he was able to get funding to go to the Anderson College, which is now Strathclyde University in Glasgow, but also spent some time at Edinburgh, at Glasgow University, to get his qualification as a doctor. So he's a doctor and a missionary who went to Africa. I'll see if I can get a bit closer here so that you can see maybe some of the detail. There we go. There he is. He's holding out his Bible there, very significant there. And if we go around the corner, you could see a lion skin, the lion's head. He suffered an attack from a lion and was able to survive it, but it did leave him with a disability in his arms, so it was very difficult for him to hold a gun and to protect himself. Now, he went into various areas of Africa on different expeditions to bring Christianity to the native peoples, but he said he was aware of the repression, the exploitation, the slavery situation that happened there, and he was challenging the Portuguese and the Boers over their mistreatment of the native peoples. And he said that being an explorer, he could use his fame to have a platform where people would listen to the issues he had with slavery. So we'll move around the statue again a bit. You can hear all the sounds of a very much an opening up city, getting quite busy now. So we'll get around the corner here. You may have heard of Henry Morton Stanley, who was a reporter on the New York Herald while he went out to find Livingston, because Livingston had become lost. And he did eventually find him, in the famous words, Dr. Livingston, I presume. We don't know if he actually did say that, but he died at the age of about 60. Livingston, his heart was removed and buried in Africa, as was the tendency that the tribal peoples believed that the spirit would stay with the heart, and his remains were taken on a long haul through the African continent and brought back to Britain, and his body is buried in Westminster Abbey. Now we're in what we call East Princess Street Gardens, which is a public space. It's been that since about 1816, because as an enlightened city we saw a great need for the people to have space for their enjoyment and health, and that green spaces, open spaces, should not just be reserved for the rich people. So coming now to Scott Monument, and this monument is 200 feet high. It's 61.5 metres there, and it's in what we call the Gothic style of architecture, and it was opened in 1844. It's in sandstone, and it's very decoratively and detailed carving on it, commemorating a great giant of literature, Sir Walter Scott, who was born here in Edinburgh, a great enlightened figure. And you can climb to the top of it. Now, the monument, some say, is the tallest to any writer, but it is not the case. There is a taller monument to Jose Marti in Havana, in Cuba, and he was a great liberator of that country, and a writer and poet. So that his monument's about 358 feet high. So it's about well over 100 metres high. So Walter Scott used to have the accolade of having the tallest monument to a writer, but not anymore. And that monument to Marti goes back to the 1950s. So here is the entrance if you want to go up the Scott Monument. It's in the Gothic style of architecture, as I said. I'm going to just swing around, another view of Jenner's department store. Now, moving on to the grass here, and it's beautiful grass, not a weed to be seen here. Puts my garden to shame. I'll swing around and you can get a view of the profile of Sir Walter Scott in this Carrara marble sculpture by John Steele. And if I was to go around the other side, sorry dog lovers, he's got his dog Maida, Irish Wolfhound. Now, Sir Walter Scott wrote 28 novels, 10 poetry books, and one of his most famous poems was Lady of the Lake, and that was his biggest success in the early days. It sold 25,000 copies in about 8 months, and it was translated into many languages, and it was what brought Sir Walter Scott into the minds of Americans in the USA, but also into many European countries. So when I guide people here, many of people are very aware of Sir Walter Scott and want to hear more. Of course, he wrote Ivanhoe, Rob Roy, Heart of Midlothian, the list goes on. And he was a great publicist. He also was a pupil of Dougal Stewart, who I mentioned in the virtual walking tour of Carlton Hill. Dougal Stewart, who had the chair of moral philosophy, who, as a young man, he tagged Walter Scott as being a great researcher, a great imagination, and knew he would go on to great things. So you're just going to swing around and you can have a little look along the seated area of Princess Street Gardens here, with the skyline of the old town of Edinburgh over in the distance here. This is a sort of gap area, the gardens, which separates the old town from the new town, which is just behind me here. I'm going to walk along a little bit more, and you can see this building here with the green dome. Sorry, my jacket's probably causing a wee bit of noise on the microphone. I hope it's not causing too much. And this is the Bank of Scotland, or now it is called Lloyd's Banking Group, this very elegant building with the flags and the green dome. And it goes back to the earlier part of the 19th century, although the bank itself, it was founded in 1685, and it's Scotland's oldest bank, first to issue paper currency. Now, they had another building, but then they wanted to replace that with this one. And during the 19th century, they engaged two architects called Robert Reid and Robert Crichton, who came up with a simpler design where it wasn't the fancy dome, decorative dome that you can see today. It was a flatter kind of top. And they had been students of Robert Adam, famous classical architect. And as time went on, various critics, especially Lord Coburn, they didn't enjoy the architecture of this building at all. So they brought in another architect called David Bryce, who embellished it. And today it's, we would term this Roman Baroque. It did suffer some support issues in the early days because this mound on which it is built was the foundations of the new town of Edinburgh when they were building the new buildings, and a lot of household waste and rubbish was also underneath what was supposed to support this building. So if you look closely, and if I can take you between the trees there, you can see there is a big supporting, huge, massive wall with very heavy pillars. Well, that was to support the building, to stop it falling. So that is the Bank of Scotland. So we'll move further along, and you can see the view down into Princess Street Gardens just now. Lots of pigeons, people like to feed the pigeons, and a lot of greenery, but it's beginning to turn as we move into autumnal colours. It's very beautiful, of course, as you can see here. See some of the sculpture work on the masonry here. I'll swing around shortly to give you another view of the Scott Monument. It was designed by a man called George Meikle Kemp, and he wasn't of the kind of personage that you would expect to win such a commission as this, designing it. He was from the border areas of Scotland, and he was a self-taught architect, joiner and draftsman. And when he put himself in for the competition to design this monument, and remember this was after Sir Walter Scott had died, he called himself John Morville, and John Morville had been one of the medieval architects of Melrose Abbey, and the architecture, the Gothic architecture of the Scott Monument is inspired by Melrose Abbey as well as Roslin Chapel. And anybody that's been to either of these buildings can probably see the similarities there. Very striking. You know you're in Edinburgh when you see the Scott Monument and, of course, the Balmoral Clock Tower, which you see behind here. Swing around again. You can see that Edinburgh's really opening up very fast now. A lot of visitors coming. Of course, we're observing social distancing and encouraging people. Certainly if people were being guided, they would be encouraged to wear a mask. And us as professional guides would encourage a group of about 6 people or something like that, 8 people in a group, because there's restrictions on the number of households that you can bring together as a group. Another views over there. Nice views. Bring you round to the views of the flowers. Beautiful. There's M&S over there, Marks and Spencer's, just behind where the buses are. I'm going to swing us around and talk about this statue. This is of Adam Black. Adam Black, he was a kind of mainly 19th century character. He was a politician. He became Lord Provost of Edinburgh on 2 occasions, and he was a Liberal Member of Parliament as well, but he was also a publisher, and he founded the company of A&C Black, who were publishers. Oh, there you go, we've got the seagull on his head, as usual. And they had a bookshop up in Northbridge, which is kind of strange because today there is a bookshop not so far away on the other side of Northbridge, so that tradition is kept. Now, one of the accolades he held was that his company held copyright to Sir Walter Scott's Waverley novels, which were published in the 19th century. He held the copyright, and also the copyright for certain editions of the Encyclopaedia Britannica, because of course Edinburgh is a city of literature. So he's standing proudly there, Adam Black. Unfortunately, most of the statues that are around Edinburgh are of male figures, but we have got many, many female characters who contributed so much to Scotland and to Edinburgh. Another view of the Scott Monument, can't get away from it. And I think this is quite nice to see. Through the archway of the Scott Monument, you're seeing a view of the clock tower of the hotel, of the Balmoral Hotel, just through the archway there. So we'll swing around again. It's kind of warm, would you believe it, today? It's breezy, it's warm. It was raining earlier, but the rain is cooperating. It's staying off at the moment, but I shouldn't actually tempt fate very much. So I'm walking through the gardens here, get another view of these beautiful flower beds. People waiting on the bus. I love these areas, these seated areas underneath the trees. You can even, if there's a little shower, a little rain shower, it can keep the rain off you a bit as well. You see down here is the National Galleries of Scotland. They are extending the Scottish Collection Gallery, and that's what all this construction work is about that you can see down there. And they are also putting in a pathway, a rampway, to enable people with mobility issues to access these lower galleries. It was actually quite difficult to do that before. Another view there of the Bank of Scotland. And swinging around to New College, what Joel was talking about on our last tour. And you see the national flag of Scotland there blowing away with a saltire. Amazing view of the castle just behind as well. And there's a cafe restaurant area down there that has got really nice views. If you have a meal there, you can get fabulous views over to the grassy, planted out areas with the trees and greenery down there also. We're coming up to another statue. That was to say thank you to characters who had done something significant. And this one is of John Wilson. John Wilson, he was born in Paisley, you know, the home of cotton, and he was the son of a gauze maker. He's fairly well off, and was able to buy an estate in the Lake District called Elleray, and got in touch with some of the major figures of literature, including William Wordsworth and Thomas De Quincey, Samuel Taylor Coleridge. He knew all these people. He was a writer, he did a law degree, but wasn't really terribly interested in pursuing it. He had gone to Oxford and he had achieved quite highly in law, so could have been an advocate here in Edinburgh, but decided to put all his efforts into writing. He was a friend of Sir Walter Scott's, of course, which didn't harm him very much, and he used the nom de plume of Christopher North, although he was actually called John Wilson. I've got to touch on this because it's a contemporary issue. He happened to marry the daughter of James Penny, who was a merchant from Liverpool, who was also kind of notorious in the slave trade, but we have no direct connections with John Wilson and that. He proceeded to work, contribute to a magazine called Blackwood's Magazine, and it was the Tory magazine. There was another one called the Edinburgh Review, and he was a satirist. He liked satire, and he was quite a clever, talented writer. He was elected to the chair of moral philosophy at Edinburgh University, but there was other competitors who were probably better qualified for this, but his connections, particularly with Walter Scott, didn't harm him at all. So that is John Wilson, or Christopher North. We're going to move on finally in this little tour, this little wander along East Princess Street Gardens to this building here, this impressive building, which is called today the Royal Scottish Academy. Now, this was built in the 1820s by William Henry Playfair in the classical design of architecture. Now, it originally was for the Board of Fisheries and Manufacturers. It was a kind of meeting place to stimulate the economy in the early 19th century, Scotland being a part of Great Britain, trying to bring up its profile. But then it incorporated the Royal Society and the Society of Antiquaries. Before, it had the connection with the Royal Scottish Academy, who have got a kind of extended let. Now, getting back from this, it's probably better to view it from the other side of the street, but it has got sphinxes, Egyptian icons on the top there, as you can see. So in addition to Roman and Grecian connections, it's called neoclassical, this style of architecture. Although you can't really see it very well, it's got a statue of Queen Victoria on this top. And originally that wasn't the case. Finally, I think I'm just going to swing around a wee bit here. difficult these days actually to see where there's some place where you can sit down. I was going to turn you around so that I could actually show you something else before I leave you, because I'm very much a visual person and I love to have a picture to show you at some stage of the tour. So I'm spotting something now just ahead of me that I'm just going to walk towards, so you can enjoy that beautiful architecture of this building on the right hand side. Flag flying. The Scottish National Gallery is behind it. It's a kind of later building going back to the 1850s, but again designed by Playfair. And you have to book at the moment to enter the collection because of social distancing and so on. Right, now what I'm going to do and try and be clever here, swing us around. And here am I. I hope you can see me, maybe you can't. Trying to be too clever maybe. But I'm going to take out my bag here, an illustration that I want to show you. And sorry, I'm wiggling you about a bit here. I want to show you this. I don't know if that is actually coming up. I might actually swing you around again. Pardon my hand, a big hand there. Oh, I got the wrong. See now. There you go, you've got me. So, here it is. Oh. There we go. This picture is by George Meikle Kemp, who designed the Scott Monument. And as you can see, he was a draftsman, a very good draftsman at that. But notice the much plainer appearance of the gallery. If you see it today, it's got a huge statue of Queen Victoria designed by John Steele in the front, but I think this is quite a calming, nice watercolour. Okay, so I'll put that away. And I'm just going to sign off shortly, but I'd like to say I hope you enjoyed watching, and Joe will be back next week and we'll be doing another part of Edinburgh's new town. Once again, if you enjoyed the tour, feel free to contribute a gratuity to our link there, and it helps us to develop these tours even more. So all the best just now and stay safe. Okay, thank you, bye.